It isn't, they think they're above that, frankly. It isn't a question of, quote, God or anything else. These people are totally convinced that they can control the physical dimension or physical man. They're aware of spirit and all that, but a lot of them don't even believe in it if they are even at that point.
Well, did you buy into their theories at the time? I mean, were you all part of this?
No, that's where I dropped away. When they started, it wasn't so much of me, what I did was volunteer to act as a president of a company, and I would go in as the president of it, and we'd liquidate the company. I'd get rid of, at that time, we considered people expendable containers, and then we'd split the spoils on what we did on liquidating the assets. I mean, there was a lot of complicated things.
You were a corporate raider almost, huh?
Exactly. And I had my own securities firm, as an underwriter. The stock market's a total lie. I mean, I can tell you what's going on.
Well, let's worry about that in a moment. Because, at what point then did you realize, I'm not going to do this with these people anymore?
Well, the real happening was when you sit in with like a dozen people planning on the reduction of the world's population, you leave half of the room and go into another meeting and we talk about getting rid of the other half. These people, it's like being in a den of black widows, rattlesnakes, and scorpions. And each one of them capable of killing each other in the proper time, and they will.
And not even blinking an eye.
Not even blinking an eye, and they don't, the nepotism at the top is pretty heavy, frankly. But when you set in on the meetings, they're expecting you to do favors for you, always. It's all set into motion. And you'll be provided with all the power, all the money, anything you need to be, as long as you do their bidding.
If you're in the club.
But they always want somebody out in front. Somebody else has to be the fall guy.
So you're the one they wanted to dangle to the world?
We at that time, yeah. I didn't know what I was going to be. You mean, what would I be in a finance chairman? I didn't know anything about the job. I mean, what would I be today? It's just
true.
You could be in any position. They move you into the way you wanted to. It's like Jimmy Carter was laying on the couch in my friends up in New York City waiting for his anointment with David Rockefeller. I mean, it's a small world controlled by very few people.
Okay, so you're doing this. At this time, did you forget all about Billy Meyer and everything that you were chasing down? You did, okay.
Oh, sure, I didn't. This was just something else. The Billy Meyer thing came in only as a curiosity, and, subsequently when I was putting together the pieces and what was really going on, I mean, if we had a planet that was engineered for 500 million people, and that happened to be the same figure or number that the guys are talking about reducing the world's population back down to, I mean, all of a sudden things click in that they know things more, right?
Like there's some kind of communication going on here?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's what I started looking at, and then I drew the line in reducing the world's population. I figured there had to be some other way, frankly.
You were a little bit too much of a humanitarian, is that why?
I guess it's a way. If you really know what happened, it was Fridays when we were up in Aspen at the meeting, I said, guys, well, I'll tell you exactly what happened. I comes into this meeting. I sat down with Ted, and my daughter walks in, and Ted looks at her, and he says, wow. He says, I want to go to bed with that.
And come on. Oh, come on. He said it just like that?
Just like that. And I says, no, you don't. That's my daughter, and she's 14. And he says, I don't care. I don't know what happened. I'm telling you this live across the country, and I've got plenty of witnesses. I got up, went across the room, and I'm talking to Pierre Pierre and his wife at the time, just to get my head leveled. I mean, I quit talking to Ted. And then I'm looking around the rest of the room, and, there's other world leaders there. But right in front of Pierre, there's a little half cigar box full of white powder. And I'm looking at James MacArthur over in the corner. Do you know him?
Yes. I've heard of him. I don't know him.
Yeah, played Dano in the Y50. He was there. I mean, a whole bunch of people, they were totally out of it. And I got to thinking, if the world leaders have to resort to this, I don't think I want to be the part of this. Anyway, on Monday, I said no, which was not the right thing to do. A couple days later, the senior VP at the Central Bank in Denver called me in my office, and he says, or called me into the office, says, George, you basically pissed the guys off upstairs. I said, what do you mean you're upstairs? And he says, higher. And he says, we've been doing business a long time. And he says, I've been ordered to call all your loans. And I said, what?
They weren't in default, were they?
No, none of them. No, in fact, I was just in the week before. I signed $1 million. I borrowed $1 million on my signature. I was borrowing like $100 million I applied for, at one of the banks in Denver. Well, a savings loan that Jeb Bush was in, just to give you an idea. So I was running around on the big one. But anyway, they decided just to call my loans. I was no longer, as his terms, considered creditworthy. At that point, wow, did I learn how to get divided. I mean, they can take you out any way they want to.
So what do they do, shut you down?
Well, they certainly tried to. I mean, I lost millions of dollars. Frankly, I sat back and said, oh, the heck with this malarkey. What am I going to do about it?
I mean, did your entire empire just collapse overnight?
No, it took them a couple of years because I figured I was smart enough and I was fairly liquid. I did manage to save a couple of $1 million, out of the whole deal. And I said, well, I'm just going to sit back. But then I sat in on the meeting with the governor of Colorado, and I still have friends within the system, so to if you want to call it that. And he's sitting there bragging that he got his ticket. Well, nobody talked to me about the ticket. And that's the ticket to the underground facilities in Australia. You've heard of that, haven't you?
Mm-hmm. Sure have.
Well, they set that into motion for, 35,000 of the so-called elite when they get the war start, when the nuclear war begins in the Northern Hemisphere.
Well, since then, they've probably built a few more of those facilities.
Well, they're all over. Now, 4 years ago, let's bring you up to date. 4 years ago, I was building a project in Las Vegas, and I was approached to build an enemy prisoner of war camp in downtown Las Vegas. It's right on the railroad tracks. I mean, I've got the documents.
Underground or above ground?
Above ground. I'm on the railroad track, just so you know.
All right.
Anyway, I'm looking at this, and I said, what's going on? This is 4 years ago. And at that point, I got contacted by the ETs again.
How did they contact you?
Well, telepathically at that time. You know how that works?
And when you say again, the first time was...
Well, the first time we had physical and then telepathic. Telepathic is kind of like working on a cell phone without the cell phone.
Right.
Each one of us have a different frequency, right? When you pray, you're putting out a thought. And when you meditate, you're hoping to receive a thought. In fact, biblically speaking, John 1 says, in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was God. That wasn't even correct translation. In the beginning was thought, because words are just thought out loud.
Exactly. So you're getting this kind of contact at that time.
Exactly. And with verification, with their beam ships, and I still do all the time that they're just monitoring the entire planet right now, and they're trying to keep the planet stabilized, because there's a lot of events that are coming up.
Did they contact you because of your relationship with Billy Meyer and the fact that, if he signs off on you, you're okay? Or
Well, it turns out since then it's opened up another Pandora's box that it was a trigger to awaken me to what I was supposed to be doing in the first place. I guess I volunteered to have this mission, and at the time to have the mission to awaken mankind or do what I'm supposed to be doing, it was all part of the sequence of events. Nothing happens exactly like you and I may plan, George, frankly. And that's like reading the special message on my website. That'll trigger a lot of people to activate their if you want to call it, their connection with higher energies. Let's just put it that way.
Because I understand, we'll get to this, but you're going to give out this handbook for free, right?
Well, when I got with the extraterrestrials, put yourself in my position. I understand that there's a possibility that this planet will be extinct in the next 8 years.
8 years?
Well, year 2012, which is, basically coincides. Well, that's the plan. 2000 is to reduce the world's population down to 500 million. By then, the Mayans calculate the end beginning, as you know, of their calendar. I mean, about everything comes into the coordination of events, or the sequence of events on this thing.
Now, are these extraterrestrials warning you to warn us, or are they part of this thing?
No, they're monitoring us. Remember the free will thing that's involved. Now, look, I've flown around the planet. I went to Beijing, China with this information to give you an idea. And the Chinese government, they just kind of laugh because they have government publications, ongoing government monthly publications, frankly, on the direct contacts with extraterrestrials and the Chinese. I don't know if you knew that or not. My son's a nuclear physicist, and he happens to be in the secret city in Russia right now. Now, you're probably aware that they have 22,000 nuclear warheads.
Well, yes, they've always had those.
Yeah, aimed at the United States in the last 3 years. They've been upscaling all of this material. They're supposed to be descaling it. No, they stopped it when we hit Iraq. Putin says, forget that. My son is in the secret city. He's a nuclear physicist, I'm saying. He's a senior engineer with Bechtel. Don't you think he better get out of there? He's leaving, as a matter of fact, as we speak. Should be back next week, and then there's no place going to be safe on the planet, George. I mean, I look all the way around. I've been trying to find a place myself.